Welcome to Stop Overthinking, the podcast for overthinkers, people pleasers, and perfectionists who want to feel calm and confident enough to handle whatever life sends your way. I'm your host, Kristen, a women's life and mindset coach, lifelong educator, and recovering perfectionist. Welcome back to another episode of the Stop Overthinking podcast. Today is a guest episode, and I have Angela Smith with us today. She is a New Zealand author who writes books on self-esteem and resiliency for 3 to 8-year-olds. These children's books are used in classrooms worldwide and help children learn about healthy boundaries, resiliency, and how to value themselves. And alongside her children's book, Angela writes wellness books for adults on self-love and how to best tap into the highest vision that they have for themselves and their lives through mindset techniques. Welcome, Angela. We are so happy to have you here today. Tell us more about how you got into this work, please.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here. I started off writing children's books. So my very first book was called I Love Myself. My son was having a few issues settling in. I had a very relaxed way of parenting, and I think school was a little bit different. And I chatted to a friend, and she said to me, "Why don't you write a book?" And so rather than address it with the teachers at the time, I thought, okay, I can actually address what I think is coming up for my son is probably coming up for other children, so let's do it. So I was totally cold turkey, never written a book before, never self-published, never marketed. And I went on, and this book came out, I Love Myself, came out in 2007, and I recently republished it with a new cover and slightly updated the insides.
Fantastic skills, of course, writing about resiliency and boundaries and mindset, all of those things that I think kids are starting to learn today because of books like yours. But I know as a child, I certainly didn't get it. And that's one of the reasons why I'm here and doing this podcast and all of those things as well. So how many books have you written at this point?
I have written 9 books. Most of them are children's books. However, with this I Love Myself book, I had as many adults buying it for themselves. I've also recently put a book out called I Am Me, Unique and Free. And I have people using that when they're uplifting children from unsafe homes. Again, people are saying that it's suitable for adults. I think with the last few years, a lot of us have gone through a lot of upheaval. There's a lot of upheaval in the world right now. And so children's books for adults is actually a thing because it comes back to self-soothing, learning how to feel good about ourselves, learning to accept that we're all unique, that we are beautiful, because we all are, that we all have something to contribute to the world. And so I put that in these books. So I think starting with the children's books, any adult, be it a teacher or a parent, a caregiver, they're getting the messages as well.
I agree with the children's books as well. And I think just the tone of a children's book is softer and maybe gentler. And for some of us, that maybe will resonate more because when it's in your face as to what you need to do, that's not always welcome. We're maybe not in the right position to have that. You wrote this adult book, though, Stepping into Love, and tell us a little bit about how that book came about. So you switched from children's to adults, and we'll talk more about the book because it is beautifully written and overlays so much with what we talk about on this podcast. How did Stepping into Love come about for you?
Well, you're going to laugh because like the first book, but slightly different, I was having a healing session with an intuitive healer, and she said to me, "Angela, it's time you wrote another book." She said, "I can feel another book coming through for you." She said, "This time it won't be a children's book. It will be a book for adults. However," she said, "it will be like a companion book to your I Love Myself book." And so I thought, And normally, if I'm wanting inspiration to come through, I walk along the beach. I'm lucky I'm surrounded by beaches where I am. I was walking along the beach the next day. The title to the book flew on in. I always say things come to me sideways, and I listen to them. I've learned to listen to my intuition because that's my higher wisdom. I believe we're guided from above, from within. And I started to write the book. And it took quite a few years to write. It was like the more I delved into the topics, I would experience the content in them so that I could dive back in and add more compassion to them. I didn't want it to be a book, like a rah-rah book or a goal-setting book. That genre is for a lot of people. It wasn't for me. I felt that we can be so hard on ourselves that I wanted this book to be like a friend guiding a friend or having a chat and being compassionate. I'm there with you. What's going on? Maybe you could try this.
And I'm going to read just the titles of a few of the chapters from the table of contents, just so the listeners get an idea, because when we were chatting and then I took a look at this book, it's like, wow, isn't it so much of what we talk about? It's everything from your heart's desire and how we talk to ourselves, accepting all of you, boundaries. It's okay to put yourself first, creating a beautiful space. What else is possible? Choosing love, love your body. So I just randomly selected chapter titles there from the table of contents. It is a compassionate book, very easy to read, and offers some different exercises, some things to consider as you are going through this journey of life. So the topic there, with it being self-love, what does that mean for you, and how that developed into a book?
Self-love for me means being kind to yourself, not negating yourself. So it's like welcoming yourself into the world, like you'd welcome a baby. There's all the love shown towards that baby. There's the excitement. There's the possibilities. There's generally not any of the negative. You can't do this. Oh, look how you look. You've got one too many wrinkle. You've got a grey hair. You're carrying one too many pounds. It's just, oh my goodness, how amazing is this? We've got our whole lives to look forward to. So I think self-love is about rebirthing ourselves. It's coming back to who we are as a beautiful soul, as a beautiful soul that's going to make their mark on the world. Like I often say, I use the analogy that we're like a big jigsaw puzzle. The picture can't be complete with one person missing. Together we rise.
Yes.
So let's lift one another up, and that lifting one another up starts with ourselves.
Yes.
If we're having those, the negative talk, in some ways, as I say in the book, then we teach other people how to think about us. If we're always saying, oh no, I can't do that, I'm not good enough, then other people will start to think, okay, maybe she's not good enough. Imagine if you were a job interview and you said those things, they'd think, oh, well, actually, you're not the person for us. So we do that with our personal relationships. So often affirming, not just for ourselves, but people are listening. So it's really important to speak positively of ourselves, and other people think, yeah, she can do that. Oh yeah, I get that. I see that in her. And when other people think good things about others, then they think that for themselves. Okay, if that person can do that, maybe I can too. I can see how positively they're talking about themselves. And that looks good on them.
Yeah, you talk a lot about the power of our words and different points throughout the book. And one of them in one of the first sections was just with affirmations and the power of words, the feelings behind them, but also that we need to believe in those affirmations for them to really come true. Can you talk a little bit more about your thoughts on affirmations and being able to believe them?
Absolutely. Affirmations can have a bad rap for people. There's a way to do affirmations. You speak the affirmations as if they're already happened or happening. And it's important to have affirmations that are in alignment with how you actually do feel or potentially can feel. So rather than saying, I can't do that, you could maybe say to yourself, I'm willing to consider that I can do that. I love how I'm open to possibilities and change. I love how things are changing for me. And there's a companion workbook that goes with this book. And I have a chapter in that, and it's about wonder. So it's like, I wonder if I did that. I wonder how that would look. I wonder what else is possible. Because Einstein said the power of life is in the caliber of the questions that we ask. So I like to think of wonder, inquisitiveness, and the power of affirmations as like a key, a combination lock that unlocks the potential that is within us. But again, like if I'm saying I can't do that, I say I can do that. That would be a simple one for a child, or I can give that a go.
Mm-hmm.
I can take a step towards that. So I have lots of affirmations written down, but it's also like here, I am worthy of the success I desire. I take daily actions towards achieving my dreams. Everything is falling into place for me. I tune into my inner guidance and embrace life lovingly. So that might be a slightly different affirmation to what people are used to, but it's an action one. So again, I tune into my inner guidance and embrace life lovingly.
And if somebody is like, "Ugh, I can't embrace life lovingly right now. Maybe it's hard or something happened." How can they get to a place to step into that where it is believable to them?
Okay, I was told once that there's a branch of psychology which is called transactional psychology, and so you talk to yourself as if you were a baby, funnily enough. So you might stroke your hand and say, there, it's okay. It's all going to be okay. You're doing the best that you can do. It's all going to be okay. So you just repeat that over and over.
Sure.
You're going to be okay. You're going to be fine. You're going to get through this. You've done the best that you can do. So it's just that absolute self-soothing. That I use that technique often.
Mm-hmm.
Because as I said, we do have things thrown at us in all different directions. And it's just a self-soothing technique that, for me, it helps me recalibrate my nervous system.
It's much more compassionate, for sure.
Absolutely. We can be so hard on ourselves. People say that we're the worst critic. And for me now, having written these books, 99% of the time I catch myself or I overturn something immediately. It's phenomenal how much it has changed my life. As much as I was positive, I used to have this melancholic trait running through the theme of my life. So much had come at me, and now I don't have that anymore. So for me, I know it's been absolutely transformational.
And again, with the power of words, so going to a separate chapter about how we talk to ourselves. This is chapter 6 in the book. And this is stuff that I talk about all the time as well. But I love the way that you were able to put it into words, that the power to change our circumstances lies within. And once we understand that how we speak to ourselves matters, we change our lives with our thinking. How we think and act in the present moment of now influences what lies ahead, with our thoughts and feelings acting like an echo chamber, reverberating out to future versions of ourselves. Again, I just love the way that you wrote that. And also with that, because it's our thinking, you also say that we can course correct at any time into that version that we want to be. So let's talk a little bit more about how we talk to ourselves, because it's usually not very nice. And for the listeners to this podcast, especially, we know that we're really hard on ourselves. Talk to us a little bit more about how to be kinder with our self-talk.
I have my affirmations written down, so I change them up depending on what I'm going through in my life. But they're part of my morning, midday, evening routine. So it's like a constant train going through my head. And I'm always like, what else is possible? And everything's always working out beautifully. It's so automatic to me that my, as I say, my positive speak, that's my default now. And so again, it's that just being self-compassionate, If you really can't get out of your head, go for a walk, watch a movie, something funny on television. I think laughter is the best thing. I'm also an intuitive healing massage therapist, and I often say to my clients, if you watch something funny, when you laugh and laugh, you'll find yourself coughing. The lungs are to do with, when I learned natural therapies and medicine, were to do with grief. And sometimes we have things sitting in our system that we don't even know. So the more you laugh, the more you will actually eliminate by coughing. And so again, it's like, so that's somatic. It's a physical something to take your mind off things that you're hiding.
I've never heard that. Yeah. It's so cool. You mentioned that that's like your default self-talk now, that you are that compassionate. Was it always that way for you?
No, not at all. I didn't grow up feeling very lovable. I dedicated this book to my twin brother who died when we were a day old. I was in an incubator for 6 weeks, so I didn't get to be seen or held by my mother. So there was no bonding there. And then in that first year of my life, I think I had measles, mumps, whooping cough, you name it, because I had older siblings and I just got everything. So I wasn't expected to live that first year of my life. And my mother was grieving. So I grew up in that. And I think being one of 6 kids as well, sometimes you could get overlooked. There was a lot. It was different times. We didn't really talk about our emotions. I felt often like there was something missing in my life, and I was a very quiet child, and I sort of just disappeared basically. So I had a lot of things that sort of, like, I ended up being married to an alcoholic who died when I was 33. So there was just, as I said, when I say there was one thing after another, there was a lot of things that came my way. I ended up, a few years later, a relationship broke up and I was pregnant, so I was a single mother. So it was just, there was a lot of stuff that I needed to navigate, and I wasn't always kind on myself. I read every self-help book out there. However, there wasn't, for me, like I've put in my book, the compassion. And this book recently won an International Book Award, and one of the head judges said, what I love about your book is that you put the reader in the book right from page 1. So I wanted to take the reader on a journey so that they could learn how to love themselves, if not actually love themselves, going through that journey. And so this book is a combination of everything that I went through to get to where I am. So there's no hate, there's no negative about what I've been through, because that has made me who I am. And I think that's another thing, part of self-love, is loving where you've been, loving where you are, and loving the potential of what's to come.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that with us. And I think people who are on their own journeys and aren't being the most compassionate to themselves, it can seem that hearing from somebody else that is already at the destination where they want to be, that, how would I get there? How do I ever do that? And so it can be helpful to hear that part of the journey. So you talked about self-compassion. Was there something else that was really something that changed the way that you talk to yourself?
I spent almost a year in India. So I went to every ashram, temple, and I think, as I say, I read every book. When I was 35, I went to university and got a degree in sociology and Asian studies, which was studying Buddhism, Hinduism, Sufism, delved right into the sort of Asian Eastern studies. So it was looking at myself. So there's always been a theme running through my life of being a nurturer, a carer. I was a nurse, a massage therapist, but I was probably caring, like a lot of us do, more for the other person than I necessarily was myself. Yes. And that needed to change. I think when we're hitting against a wall, and it's like time and time again, the same things are happening. The same things are choosing the same people to go out with. Same abuse may be happening at work. It's like sometimes we have to take self-analysis and think, what's going on here. We are the common denominator in our lives. And it's when I say that, it's not to beat up on ourselves for finding ourselves in that same position again. It's like finding out where you are so that then you can actually decide whether you want change or not. And if you want change, then you're going to have to do the work.
Mm-hmm.
And as we spoke about a little earlier, that work, it's like it's a daily thing. It's not just something you'll pick up once a month or when things are really crashing down around you. It has to be, I'm important enough that I'm going to put myself first as I readdress my life and my mindset so that once and for all, I can shift out of this and live my best life.
I want to talk briefly about one of the exercises here in how we talk to ourselves. And then we can circle back to what you just said about putting ourselves first, because I think there's sometimes some guilt and other things that come with that. But back to that book, How We Talk to Ourselves. One of the things that you suggested was to identify your negative thoughts. By focusing on those self-deprecating thoughts and naming them, you're more likely to catch them the next time that they surface in your mind. And ideally, then with awareness, we'll stop talking to ourselves as if we were our own worst enemy. And I'm quoting that because, again, you're so eloquent when you write it. The flip side of that, and I'll let you continue, can you tell us, so we identify those negative thoughts, and then what do we do with them? So we start noticing them. How do we change it around?
That's when we get into the I'm noticing, I'm willing to change. You can be writing down, when I say this, I'm feeling. So how does this make you feel when you say this to yourself? Again, as I said, if you were in a job interview and the person asked you about yourself and you said, oh no, I'm really not good enough. No, I'm useless at that. No, I really can't do it. Well, they would wonder why on earth you're there. So you're here to show up for yourself, and you're also here to show up for everyone else, because someone else needs what you've got. Someone else needs your smile. I used to think I had nothing to give. I started noticing people. Well, somebody actually smiled at me. It was at a day that I really didn't want to be here. I was really feeling down, and that smile made such a difference, and it impacted me so much that I really make sure that I look at people and smile, because a smile as it was for me, it was just what somebody else needed. We all have something to give. So it's like you could do an exercise. What do I have to give? What can I offer? What difference have I made? And have that written down so that when you're feeling down, you can revisit and think, oh, actually, that person, when I said that, they said how much that made them feel better. Mm-hmm. When I did that, I noticed that that person thanked me for that, or they said how much that impacted them. I am a good person. I did do that. I do this. I mean, we don't even have to be really good or bad. We just are. We're lovable because of who we are, and we don't have to do anything to be lovable. However, if it helps to note down when you have done something that has really impacted someone, then that's important. So you can readdress it. Have your own affirmations. Have it written down in your own notebook, or the workbook that I've got that takes you through a lot of these exercises as well, so that it becomes a daily, as I say, a daily practice, if not more so. Write your affirmations down in the morning, in the evening, record yourself saying them, listen to them when you're out walking.
I like the part of recording yourself saying them. I had another coach and therapist that had suggested that to me before too. And apparently there's something about hearing it in your own voice that can resonate more deeply in your brain too. But I found that especially if there were several that I was working on, that when I wanted to get them all together, that I could like repeat them with myself as I was saying them. So that's cool if you haven't tried it.
Nice. There's a mirror exercise in the book where you're telling yourself, I love you, I've got you. I can't remember the exact words. And it's really empowering. It can be really confronting for us. We're not taught to love ourselves. We're taught that it's selfish. The self-love I'm talking about, it isn't selfish.
Yeah. You had mentioned too, and being somebody who was a caregiver and giving to other people more so than we were taking care of ourselves. As people maybe are recognizing that and trying to switch into this more compassionate self-love sort of mode, but it can feel like, oh, I'm taking too much time for myself, or I am feeling selfish. What suggestions do you have as somebody is making that transition so they're not feeling like they're leaving other people behind and spending too much time on themselves?
Okay, so it's not necessarily a time thing as opposed to a mental shift. When we shift mentally, and I say to people, when you're coming home from work, sometimes the dishes might not be done. You might have asked your partner or your children to have done something and it hasn't. We come in the door and we start growling. What happens? The mood just dissipates. It's heading south rather than north. So I say, when you come home, regardless of what's going on, you greet that person as if you were a dog. You're happy to see them. How are you? How's your day? And later on, maybe the dishes didn't, I noticed the dishes didn't get done. What was up? Is something going on for you? Or can we do them together and let's talk? It's like when someone gets the vacuum cleaner out. I often say to my son, can you get the vacuum cleaner out? Then I might do the vacuuming. He'll do something else. It's so much easier. I just find if he's got it out for me, it's going to get done. So it's like that with the others in our lives. They might think, I don't want to do that again. That's a chore. I was in the middle of, like I had a friend once and she said, my husband just switches the TV off when it's bath time for my child. And she gets really upset. She has tantrums. And I said, I so would too if it was in the middle of a program that I was watching. So it's like put yourself in the shoes of the other person. And I know we're talking about ourselves, but when we do this as well, then it makes things easier for ourselves. So it's almost like having awareness of what's going on. So when we're looking at ourselves, it might be that you take 5 minutes, you get up 5 minutes earlier, you go walk out into the garden, you smell the flowers, you listen to the birds. It doesn't have to be an hour. I have a 5-minute meditation, come to a place of calm. That's 5 minutes. And people say to me, oh, that's not long enough. That was why I designed it, because often we say, I haven't got time.
And most people can find 5 minutes. Yes.
Exactly, because otherwise we're putting things off. So it's like, don't put off today what you can tomorrow. I'm this person that I have forever put off doing my accounts. Then I try and work them out when the due date for the end of year finances comes. It takes me forever. And so now finally I'm doing them month by month. And it just takes me 10 minutes. And it's like the not doing them was weighing it was weighting me down on my mind. So I think rather than thinking of what's going wrong, the negative, what I have to do, sometimes if we just did it, then that actually would free up a lot of space in our lives.
Yes. One of the other topics that I had wanted to touch on, again, there are so many good ones, and this book is available on Amazon. It's on Amazon Unlimited. If you have that subscription, you can read it for free there as well. But you talk about when life feels derailed, and we all know that happens sometimes more frequently than we want to, and definitely it's not on our timeline that happens. It's never in a good space. But I like you say, in times of uncertainty, overwhelm, and struggle, pause and be kind to yourself. Be honest about any thoughts and feelings you're having. Take time to regroup, being mindful that life isn't a race and you can get back on track one step at a time. And you then give us some little suggestions that can be really helpful, because of course, when things aren't going our way, that's generally what we're focusing on. And so having a list someplace can be helpful. And you say everything from switching your phone off, soaking in the tub, taking nature walk, going to concerts, planning a weekend away. I like this one. Spend time each week exploring what you're interested in, but have never really looked at because there wasn't the time. So whether that's a topic like biology, archaeology, social history, going into old bookstores, taking photos, really dive into something that has intrigued you. And so there are several of these. Go to the children's section in a library or a bookstore and pick out a book is another suggestion. This book as well, it just has so many helpful little nuggets in there that can almost be utilized as a resource book. Hey, it's a bad day. I know that nothing in my brain is going to be helpful right now, but I can go open this up and there's going to be some helpful material for us. Where did all of these ideas come from for you?
As I said, it was like, as I was writing the book, it was like I had to go through everything again until I really understood it at a depth. That I must admit, though, for those ideas, that a lot of that came from my editor. The other ideas, just from things that had helped me, things that were working in my life. As I said, my life had been derailed so many times that I had to find a way out. It was like I was done. I was done being on the floor crying, not wanting to be here or not knowing which way to turn. It was like I had to find a way to turn. Often when people say, I don't know, I always say, what if you were to know? What would your next step be? Often we don't take a step because we don't feel lovable. We're not feeling brave. But what if you were to feel brave?
Mm-hmm.
What if there was somebody that could walk you through this? What if there was somebody that could hold your hand? What if it did work out?
Mm-hmm. Those what if questions and curiosity can just be so powerful. I love that as well. I use that a lot with my clients, but also curiosity is, they can bring joy, but it's definitely can be more compassionate even to others, because if you're curious and wondering what if, it's hard to be judgmental of yourself or of others when you're wondering what if. It's just a different state of mind. So that's one I really like to use as well.
Absolutely. Like with the children's book suggestion, isn't that a great thing? You go to the library and you open a book that's just genuinely magical, and it just literally can take your mind off of what you're thinking about. And that's the key. Sometimes we do need to take our minds off of the troubles because it's too much. We're not meant to carry a heavy load 100% of the time. There are always moments of joy to be found, no matter what is going on in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that means taking ourselves out of our life and thinking about something else, or into gratitude. I always say there's always something that we can be grateful for.
Right. And those little moments of joy, I've been really trying to be more intentional myself about finding those. Love sunsets, and people follow me on Instagram. They often see pictures of sunsets in the evening for me. I love the smell of lilacs. And so wherever I can find those, I literally stop and smell the lilacs when I'm out walking. That just brings me joy. It centers me. Finding those where you can, because it's so easy to get bogged down in the busyness of life, or the worries and the responsibilities and the obligations and all of the things that we have to do. It can be so easy to just put these other things aside, and little moments can make such a difference.
It gets us off that hamster wheel where we're just sort of like pedaling and faster, and we're just spinning in every direction. And it's just like, I have old-fashioned roses in my garden that are over 80 years old, and the smell, I would say, it's just divine. Again, if I'm going through something, I'll often just head out to the garden. I just bury my head in a rose, and it's like, and so then I can't think. They say if you're thinking a joyful or a happy thought, you can't think a negative thought at the same time. So it's just retraining ourselves, because I don't want to negate what anyone is going through. But if you start to look for the moments of happiness and joy, you might be surprised at how many you find.
I love that ending note there. You just have a wonderful way with words and being able to express that. So I'm so glad we were able to share that with the audience today. For my audience that is in their head too much, they're hard on themselves, what last words would you like to leave them with?
I always say, you've got this. You're doing the best that you can. things will change. There's always a brighter day ahead.
Mhm. Thank you so much. Yes. So for listeners, as always, I will link the book and Angela's information in the show notes as well. If you'd like to find some of her materials and resources, and visit her website. Thank you so much, Angela. And you're in New Zealand, and it always fascinates me that we can have these amazing conversations when we are thousands and thousands of miles apart, literally on different days right now because of the time difference. So, I so appreciate your time and talking with our guests today.
Thank you so much. It's been
Thank
a
you.
pleasure.
We'll be back next week with another episode of Stop Overthinking Podcast. Thank you for listening to the Stop Overthinking Podcast with Kristen Odegaard. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with someone else who would benefit from the message. To learn more about working with me and links to social media and free resources, head over to my website, coachwithkristen.com. That's Kristen spelled Kristen. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss future episodes. Have a great week.